So what's the worst running experience you've ever had? So I've been running competitively for over 25 years, and in all that time, the worst experiences I've had is running poorly in a race or DNFing. But last weekend at the Halstead and Essex Marathon, something happened to me that's never happened before and has really made me rethink a lot of what running means to me. So those of you who have followed this channel for a while will realise that the last several months have been littered with marathon disasters for me. October 2023, DNFing the Yorkshire Marathon at 17 miles. February 2024, the Marriott's Way Marathon, which although finished, ended up in a sea of mud. It's unwalkable, never mind unrunnable. And then more recently, the Manchester Marathon of April 2024, another DNF at 18 miles. So with that monkey on my back, we decided last weekend we would run the Halstead and Essex Marathon. Now that's a bit of an odd choice, you might think. Why jump into another marathon? We didn't actually jump into it last year. We were due to do it because it was Dawn having problems with various marathons, Manchester DNF, Milton Keynes DNF. So we entered Halstead, a good traditional club marathon we'd wanted to do for a while. And then lo and behold, we got COVID, but the organisers kindly rolled over our entries to this year. So with a recent DNF behind me, we thought, what better way to get that monkey off my back than to go down to the lovely county of Essex and run the beautiful country lanes around Halstead for me to complete a marathon. So we recently made a video about factors to take into account when choosing a marathon. And as far as Halstead goes, it ticked most of the boxes. The pre-race logistics were absolutely smooth. We had ample parking, about a 200-yard walk from the start line. Race headquarters of the local leisure centre, ample toilets, plenty of space to chill out.
And one thing we really appreciated and was impressed with is that we could put our own drinks bottles to be taken out to specific areas on the course.
That's right, and as well as that, there were 8 different water stations on the route. I think because you repeated the same loop 2 or 3 times, it was really well organised by Halstead road runners in terms of water and on-course logistics. So, feeling pretty chilled in the beautiful May sunshine in Essex, off we set on the, I think the 30th Halstead and Essex Marathon.
3, 2, 1.
And we're off on the Halstead and Essex Marathon! As it was a hot day, we decided that we were going to run it as a long Sunday training run and come in around 4 hours, which is about 9-minute miling.
And the first 10 miles were pretty uneventful. We were ticking off those miles a few seconds either side of 9-minute miling.
So far so good?
Yeah. The water stations were really well organised, and the special drink stations, what you did is you ran towards the station, you'd shout out your race number, and then a relay of volunteers would shout your number to next person. So by the time you got to the drink station, they'd have your drinks bottle labelled and ready to hand to you. Never had that in a marathon before. It's maybe what the elites get, but in a club organised marathon, to have your own special drinks bottle ready to be handed to you in person, really fantastic touch.
So each runner could have 3 bottles each across the water stations.
So what we chose to have were 4 bottles of Lucasade Sport between us, 1 bottle of electrolytes made with an SAS tab, and 1 bottle of OTE super carbs, which I chose to put on the about 17.5 mile point for that final boost for the final part of the marathon.
So we also carried our gels with us. So I had 2 OTE gels, and I think you had...
I had 2 as well, the super carb ones, 40 grams each. So certainly in terms of fueling, and as we thought at the time, hydration, we were well set. And certainly Halstead road runners did everything they could to support on the course with the hydration and comfort of runners. So all going well so far. Nice chilled start, ticking along at the pace we thought, ready access to drinks and special drinks. But about 10 miles, I had the Manchester feeling about me. Now what is the Manchester feeling? It was the fact that I felt that the power I was getting for the heart rate I was putting in was beginning to fade a little. If you look at the stats, you can see the paces start to fade, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 miles. And we thought, well, it's a very hot day. It's still okay. We'll just keep going to the end, make of the course what it will. It was quite undulating in places. It certainly got quite hilly, I think, towards the end. But still, we're enjoying a day out. It's a beautiful course, and things were going okay at this point.
So around 18 miles, I could tell that John was really struggling. So I suggested, why don't we forget about time? It was a really hot day. This must be the hottest day we've had this year. And let's just walk, jog to the finish.
Now, my interpretation of why I was struggling was the similar issue I had at Manchester, loss of power. My hips were screaming. I was down to a shuffle. I was down to running like 12-13 minute mile pace because that's all my legs could do. And I thought, we've got another mechanical blowout here.
So from the 18-mile point, we started to walk, jog, and I could see that John was still struggling, so I did give him the opportunity to drop out at that point.
Yeah, because it was a looped course, there was a shorter route back to Halstead and the race headquarters. And on any other day, in those conditions, I think it got up to about 25-degree heat by that point, I would possibly have taken the option. But given the history of DNFs and marathon failure, I was absolutely determined I was going to get to the end. So I did have to take walk breaks, which goes against the grain for me. But what I was pleased with is that they were very short and there was far more running than walking taking place. I was actually, by mile 25, thinking, if not cracked it, at least I've shown great physical and mental resilience to get running all the way to the end. But at mile about 25.8, what happened?
Yeah, so going down a hill, which you were finding extremely difficult, the downs were much worse than the ups, you got severe cramp.
That's why I just stopped dead, like somebody shot me in my left adductor. Managed eventually to stretch it out for it to go, and we shuffled towards the end and crossed the finish line in a time of around 4 hours and 25 minutes. Not the finest running day out, but I was super pleased and super proud to have finished that marathon. So I've never been much of a medal person, but having watched people receive their marathon medals at Manchester, at London, at Newport, at Brighton and elsewhere, I was really, really proud to get this put around my neck by a lovely young man, my Halstead Marathon medal of 2024. So by this stage, super pleased to finish a marathon, super unpleased to have had another mechanical blow up, but I was ready to unpick and analyse what had happened. But this is where things get really interesting. So once I crossed the finish line, I was not in a good way. I sat down on a bench right by the finish line, glugged down the bottle of water I'd been handed when crossing the finish line, glugged down Dawn's bottle of water she'd been given when crossing the finish line, and staggered a few more steps and discovered a nice bit of grass. So I thought I'll lie down and recover all my faculties and then go back to the car and head out of Halstead. So at this stage I didn't feel well enough to dive into the rather wonderful goodie bag we got. Yeah, nice bottle, live well in the Braintree district, I'm sure many people do. But there was actually a Mars bar in here, you should not see what one looks like. There was a bag of crisps and there was a can of full fat Coke. So had I had my wits about me, looked in here and thought, right, salt, glucose, caffeine, sugar from the Coke, I might well have had a different story to tell. So I staggered a few steps sort of out of the leisure centre towards the car and then reported to Dawn, I really don't feel well at all. So we doubled back a few steps inside the leisure centre sports hall. And at that point, I really wasn't feeling good. Dawn went to fetch a chair. I doubled over. Some runners asked me if I was okay. I sat down on the chair. Dawn tried giving me some Coke because we thought that would revive me. But I then broke out in a massively cold sweat everywhere along my arms, my forehead, my neck. Next thing I knew, I'm waking up on the floor. So what happened there?
So yes, a very scary experience. As John said, he woke up on the floor. Before that, he became a little bit incoherent and his head went to the side and his eyes started to roll and he passed straight out. There were some St. John ambulance personnel on the scene and they were able to put him on the floor, able to deal with what was going on. So, you know, I was extremely worried at this point and I was so relieved when I saw him come around.
So my memory of it is having an oxygen mask thrust on me, water given to me, and eventually the St. John's ambulance folk took me around to like a sick bay, casualty clearing station maybe. There was myself, there's another chap who was suffering from severe cramps. As I was really cold at that point, they put a blanket over me, they gave me some rehydration fluid, and then they did some, was it an ECG test? Yeah. Which revealed slight inconsistencies in heart rate, which meant that to cover themselves, they then needed to admit me to the nearest hospital, which was half an hour drive away, back in Colchester.
And I was extremely concerned at this point, as you can imagine, as I drove down the A12 behind an ambulance, not knowing where I was going or what was happening.
So I had further tests done at Colchester General before I finally left there later in the evening after the race. Best guess as to what happened, obviously some heat exhaustion, 25-degree running a marathon is not to be recommended. Severe dehydration, even though I'd put a bottle of electrolytes out with the special drinks we could have, it possibly wasn't enough because I sweat a great deal. I think I'm going to have to look into salt tabs from here on in. There you go. I didn't do that for effect. So I think 3 things there. 1, the mechanics breaking down on me again, as at Manchester. 2, the exogenous conditions, the heat, etc. And then thirdly, maybe some underlying virus in my body where I can get away with it on a park run or a training run, but trying to run a marathon in 25-degree heat probably isn't the best option. But I'd just like at this point to say a huge thank you to the St John's ambulance personnel on duty. They were very, very supportive, very professional. They got me through and got Dawn through what was a very traumatic experience. So thank you, St John's ambulance, who are on duty at the Halstead Marathon. Also, a huge thank you to the organisers, Halstead Road Runners. Now, they're a club of 94 runners, I think, and every year they put on this marathon, which consistently voted in the top 3 or 5 in the UK, and I can see why. It doesn't have all the razzmatazz of a London or a Manchester. It doesn't advertise itself as PB potential or anything. It's just a good old traditional club marathon, of which there's only like a handful left in the UK. Absolutely superb. The support on course, the enthusiasm of the marshals out there.
Right pace, keep it up, guys!
Was absolutely first class. As I say, 8 water stations, the ability to put special drinks out. Really highly recommended. So I said earlier that this has made me rethink some of the things I think about running. So first thing, 25 years of running, I've never really taken much notice of St John's ambulance or any of the medical infrastructure in place in a race. It's made me think and really appreciate everything else that goes on in race organisation beyond the mile markers and the cones and the drink stations. So massive appreciation there. When I was lying there in the St John's ambulance sick bay in Halstead Leisure Centre, I was thinking, should I run any more marathons? Obviously mechanics you can sort out, you can get advice, you can do exercises, but is there something in my body underlying that means when I get past 2 hours, 2.5 hours of harder running, then something in my body is breaking down? Although this wasn't actually meant to be hard running about 9-minute mile in normal training pace, my heart rate was super low. In fact, what I'll do, I'll put up on the screen my heart rate splits for each mile next to what I get from this Coros watch, which is the power data for each mile. I won't put pace on because it's a very undulating course, it's meaningless. But what you actually see is, as my heart rate goes up and up and up during the race, the actual power output I'm getting from my legs is decreasing. So that's making me think, why is this happening? If anybody's got any answers or any suggestions, I'd love to know in the comments below. So at the minute I'm fighting a reluctance to put Dawn through that and my body through what happened earlier in the week at the Halstead and Essex Marathon, with a burning desire not to let the marathon beat me. So I think I'm going to follow a plan over the summer, looking towards an autumn marathon that has long and hard runs built into it. I'm thinking if I can get through 22, 23 mile runs with harder efforts in the middle, that tells me my body will cope with longer, harder efforts. But if my body does not play ball with those, and I'm fading and struggling and either the mechanics are going or the power output is dropping as the heart rate increases, and I know there's something else going on that might need further medical investigation. So that, viewers, is the story of our Halstead and Essex Marathon 2024. Not quite, again, the video I wanted to bring you post-marathon, but we hope an interesting one nevertheless. If you have learnt something or appreciated about what you've seen in this video, please give it a like. And if you want to see my continuing battles via the marathon, then please consider subscribing, because I don't think it's over yet.
And can I just say, folks, I'm super proud of the efforts that John put in at the Halstead Marathon.
So, until next time, keep on keeping on.
Keep on keeping on.
Which is what I did.